What's up, everybody? I'm Blessed and Free. Welcome back to another episode of DOC TV. So I've been telling the subscribers that I already have that I'm going to start dropping episodes on my personal stories. If you're just tuning in for the first time, on this channel we talk about jail, prison, crime, the criminal justice system, and everything in between. But if you haven't, man, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now because I'm dropping content on the daily. Now, this story is going to be about the time that I got set up by a correctional officer. This story takes place when I was in jail a little early, in my criminal career. And that jail's in Pasco County. I'm sure some people watching this have been to that jail. I'm just going to tell you, if you haven't, it fucking sucks. And if you have, you already know what it is, man. So in that jail, they have open bay dorms, and they also have dorms that have cells, like a top tier and a bottom tier. For me, man, when I'm doing time, I would rather be in a cell, because when you're doing time in jail or prison, you're going to run across people that get on your nerves, and they're annoying, they're disrespectful, and sometimes you just want to go in your cell and get away from people. And when you're in an open bay dorm, you can't do that. There's like 50 or 60 people. You're around them 24/7. Eventually, you're going to run across the motherfucker that you're going to want to do something to. And that's kind of what goes on in this story. So I was in the open bay dorm. I'm in the dorm with a bunch of my homeboys that I know from the street. And over the time that we were in the dorm, we would wait till a straight officer would work the dorm, and we would get him to switch our bunks. So eventually we all ended up in the bunks that were in the corner of this dorm. And that's really where you want to be in an open bay dorm, because it's like a blind spot really that the officer can't see from his desk. Because at night in an open bay dorm, when they turn the lights off, you're supposed to go to sleep and you can't really move around. So us being in the corner where we were, we were the poker house. We ran the spades table. We're always gambling. So we would just stay up all night and we would play poker. And, when money got tight, then we would run spades, because that's like a cheaper game to gamble on. And a couple bunks down from us were a couple jits, and they would say some slick ass shit out of their mouth. And, we were in jail, and a lot of people in jail haven't gone to prison yet. So they don't know about like the convict code and shit that is like unwritten rules that you don't say or do, because it can be disrespectful. And that was those jits to a T. And a lot of times we would spare them because we didn't want to get rolled up out of the dorm and, have to go to a different dorm, because we were vibing, we were passing time. We were just chilling, bro, gambling and doing our thing and making money. We used to have these rookie officers that would work the dorm. And when they would come in, they would be straight to a T, by the book. We had this officer, when he came in the dorm, he would make this huge speech on, when you're in my dorm, I don't want you standing up when you're playing cards. Don't be slamming the cards. And when the nurse comes in to hand out medication, shut the fuck up, or you're all going to go to your bunk. And, he would do that. So every time he worked, we would know, like, all right, like, we got to be on our P's and Q's, because we didn't want to get rolled up. So this officer came in this day and he said his whole little dumbass speech that he does. He was like a RoboCop officer. Like, he was such a dork. You could tell this dude got picked on, like, in high school. He probably still got picked on the streets, and definitely we were picking on him when he was in jail. And, this dorm was off the chain, so the officers already knew about this dorm. We used to have Friday night fight night. We would get jits like that we didn't really fuck with, that would say slick ass shit out of their mouth. And my boy would be like, man, I got 10 honey buns on Frodo. And I would be like, bro, I got 10 soups on Harry Potter. And when the lights would go out and the officer would leave the dorm for his break, we would be like, all right, man, you guys want this shit? And they'd be like, yeah. And we're like, all right, get in the grid and fight it out. Whoever wins gets the pot. So we did that shit like every other night, when we get new people in the dorm. And my boy I used to run the poker table with was like the head blood in the dorm. I think he was one in the whole jail. But one of his brothers came into the dorm, and a couple days after him being there, he started stealing shit, and he was on some whole other shit. And my boy that I was playing poker with, he wasn't on that shit. Like, he was living it to a T type deal. So when he found out his brother was stealing people's shit, he told him to tighten up. And they went in the grid, and my boy destroyed him. And he beat the brakes off his brother. And when he was on the ground, my boy ran up and punted his forehead in the face and the emblem that was on the tongue of the shoe that he kicked him with was imprinted on his brother's face. Like, he fucked him up decent. They ended up taking his brother out of the dorm. So, like, this dorm was popping. So the officers were, like, giving us a hard time because they knew, like, we were doing a lot of shit we shouldn't have been. And the day this officer came in the dorm, like, he was on the fuck shit. And we knew, all of us that were in that corner, like, all right, man, we're not staying up tonight. We're just going to chill. Like, we're not trying to get moved. And the officer had made a comment when he came in that if y'all don't shut the fuck up tonight when I turn the lights out, I'm going to stand all you up. I'm going to tell you to pack your shit, and I'm going to put you alphabetical order by the bunk. And we didn't want to do that because we had our thing going on. But this jit that was a couple bunks down from us, he just didn't want to fucking listen. And when the officer shut the lights out, he ran over to the other side of the dorm with one of his homeboys to play fucking rummy.
You're a fucking idiot.
Like, out of all things, like, that's what I mean by these jits, bro. They were fucking idiots. And the officer was on his break, so when he came back in, he saw the jit trying to, run back to his bunk so he wouldn't see it. And he turned around, went outside the dorm. He flipped the lights on in the dorm, and like 10 officers come in. And they're, he's saying, everybody stand up and pack your shit up. You're getting moved around the dorm. So I was fucking pissed. My boy Frankie, that was, one of the dudes that was playing poker with me, he came over. He's like, man, what you want to do? And as we're like packing our shit up, this officer that had knew me because, I'd been in that jail a couple times, he came over and he's like, bro, what are you doing, man? Why are you making us come in here and handle this shit, man? You should be handling this shit. So I was like, oh yeah? And he's like, yeah, bro, you need to handle this. He's like, I don't want to be in here. So I'm like, all right, we'll leave and I'll handle it. So he walks out of the dorm, and me and, we're moving our shit. I put my shoes on, and my boy Frankie puts his shoes on. And I go over to the dude that was, playing rummy with his homeboy. They got us all fucked up in the game. And I was like, yo, bro, why are you always running your fucking mouth? Boom, and smacked him. And I fucking like mollywopped him. Like, when you smack someone so hard and you connect right, like, you can feel the sensation like go up to your shoulder. So it was one of those smacks. And this kid had like rotten teeth in his mouth. So when I smacked him, like, his back tooth went flying out. He started bleeding everywhere. And as I was doing that, my boy Frankie ran over to his other homeboy and like put a 5-piece on him and, destroyed him. And so the officers came back in the dorm. We're telling the jit before they came in, yo, clean your blood up so they don't see what's going on. But he didn't do it fast enough. So when they came in, they saw it. And, where I fucked up was, when we got moved, I was on a top bunk. And when I had put my shoes on and all that shit went down, I never took them off. And I jumped up on the, the top bunk and just laid back. And he came walking right over to me. And he's like, what happened? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, why you got your shoes on? And I was like, oh, we were moving. I just put them on. And about this time, the nurse had already came in because, the dudes were fucked up and they're looking at them. And I guess he must have told, who hit him and shit. So he got me off the bunk. They put me and Frankie in an attorney room where your attorney comes to like visit you one-on-one. And also where I fucked up too was this dorm had cameras. So I'm sure they went outside the dorm and watched it all go down and then came right back in after it was over. So we're in the attorney room. You got the cops doing cop things. They're coming in. They're like, oh man, dude's pressing charges. And, that's all a boo game. They're telling you that so you just admit to it so they can just take you to confinement. But I'm not on that, so I wasn't going to admit to it. And so he ends up taking me and Frankie to confinement. And, obviously the moral of this story is don't go to jail or prison and you won't be put in situations like this. But if you are going to go to jail and prison, there's never a time when you're in there, definitely in prison, that you should be talking to a CO without somebody with you, because people could think, you're snitching or you're telling them information. So if you're going to go to prison, man, always talk to a correctional officer, like with your homeboy or somebody that you trust and shit that will have your back. And the other thing, obviously, is never trust a correctional officer, because they play fuck shit mind games. They play games in general with you, and they will set you up. Sometimes they'll even get 2 inmates they don't like to fight just so they can watch it and then spray you and take you to the box. So that's what ended up happening. He took me and Frankie to confinement, and I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't that bad because in jail, you have AC in confinement. It used to let you bring whatever canteen you had with you to confinement, and I had just hit like a $75 order, so you know, I was eating good for like the first 10 days, and I ended up getting like 14 days, so it wasn't bad. But the last 4 days I was in there, I got a bunkie. I was, you know, riding out solo in confinement for a minute, and then one morning they bring a bunkie to the gate, they roll the gate, and he comes in, and I can tell off rip he's gay, and he's kind of a character, if you know what I mean. And I don't have anything against gay people, but you should know, like, hey, you're gay, but I'm straight. And there's this line, like, that shouldn't be crossed. But I'm going to get into that story in an upcoming episode, and it's a good one. So make sure you guys are subscribed. Turn on your post notifications on all so you'll get a notification every time I drop an episode. And support your boy, man. Hit that thumbs up and drop a comment, man. And with that, it's DOC TV, and I'm out.